the Kinks, like the real Kinks.
There was a funny song Ray did for, I think it was just a Ray Davies song too. It wasn't a Kinks song. It was called Predictable, and it was on, it was on MTV, early MTV years and stuff like that. And Ethan and I used to we liked it. We liked the tune, and we would, and of course we turned it into Predictive Phil, and just because whenever we'd see someone, well, that's Predictive Phil.
Yeah, I could, I can go without ever hearing Lola again in my life. I mean, it's talk about overrated and all that. It's I guess kind of why we listen to what we listen to. It was just yeesh. I mean, if you turn on classic rock when we were growing up, you would have heard the same 3 Kinks songs and never knew about all this other great material, let alone Waterloo Sunset. I don't even remember hearing that on the classic rock stations, as well as all their pre-1969 stuff is just amazing. They're a great band. Sorry.
I agree. I mean, you'd hear the 2 singles from 1964, and then they'd jump right to Low Budget. Yeah,
exactly. And
okay, I'm gonna give you the Kinks story. This is One Magazine's take on it, just 2 paragraphs here. It says, things got worse on the American tour when the band decided they would cancel their San Francisco show if they weren't going to get paid in advance. It was the last straw for the promoter, and it saw...
This is 1965, by the way?
65. Yeah, May of 65. Okay. And it saw the promoter fire back by filing a former complaint to the American Federation of Musicians. The union had the power to withhold work permits for British musicians if they misbehave on stage or refuse to perform without good reason. That's exactly what happened. So it was because they tried to pull a Chuck Berry.
That's what I was saying. Now we're getting to their story. I bet, and again, I'm just, how I like to speculate. If you were okay and you did what everybody wanted, nobody bothered with you about signing up for the union and doing all this stuff. You got out of line, and then they're like, okay, we're calling the union, and we're going to, that was like a way to threaten and keep people in line.
I'm pretty confident their agreement to play the show was not paid in advance. It might have been a deposit up front and the balance of the thing.
Right.
So they weren't honoring the agreement they had. And I'm a huge Kinks fan, but you can't say I'm not going to play unless you pay me first. But the final low point of the tour had occurred backstage before their appearance on the Dick Cavett Show on August 2nd. Ray Davies would recall an incident vividly in his autobiography. Some guy who said he worked for the TV company walked up and accused us of being late. Then he started making anti-British comments. Just because the Beatles did it, every mop-top, spotty-faced, limey juvenile thinks they could come over here and make a career.
Yeah.
You're just a bunch of commie wimps.
We got to find out that guy's name.
When the Russians take over Britain, don't expect us to come over and save you this time. The Kinks, huh? Well, once I file on my report on you guys, you'll never work in the USA
You're
again.
never working in this town again, Davies.
You're going to find out just how powerful America is, you little limey bastard.
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of what I'm saying, that they're like, if you shut your mouth and did what those guys wanted, nobody
disagree.
Nobody was pressuring you to join the union.
Nothing is on the up and up, Tony. Nothing.
Right.
Brian Epstein would go and play gigs. It didn't matter where they were playing, and there was always brown bag money. Always.
However, Dave says he remembers throwing a punch and being punched back. So Dave also threw a punch. The Kinks found themselves on the receiving end of a 4-year ban from touring the United States, sanctioned by the American Federation of Musicians. The banning severely hampered the band's career.
Who knew that they had that much power?
The union, though,
that they could just ban you.
Yes,
from
but that's
you can't play.
Let's talk.
And the Kinks that's a big band.
Let's
they
talk.
were willing to. Nobody could come up with the money to say, "Look, we got to make this go away. We can make a lot of money on these guys that you call a bunch of limey, spotty-faced limeys."
Who else was banned?
The Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones?
No,
they weren't banned.
They had visa issues because they had a drug bust.
That's what I thought. Well, right. Who else was banned?
Exactly.
But look, let's talk.
Dave and the drummer got into a fight on stage in which I believe he almost took off the guy's head with a cymbal. Like they were they were pretty bad.
But I'm going to talk about like the bigger picture stuff. If we're talking about 50s and 60s, a union operation, it's gangster style, controlling jobs and corruption and controlling stuff. And so there is a lot of clout and a lot of pull.
Tony, you're making this like surprising. Nightclubs, it's a cash business. Jukeboxes, it's a cash business.
I know. I know it is. It's like gangster stuff. And in New York, in New York to work in restaurants and stuff, like hearing stories from my dad, you have to be in the union. It's like, I mean, it goes back to on the waterfront. Jobs are controlled, and to get your job, you've got to pay off people to get into the union and get on the good side of that union to get work, and people are desperate for work. So
the mob loved the fact that you had a bunch of people handing over cash, a couple dollars at a time, and 5,000 people show up, and you have, $25,000 in cash. Oops, only 100 people showed up to that show. That's so disappointing.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm sure that stuff was going on, and whether it was the band,
it was going on.
No, I know, but I'm saying the band, the Kinks or their management brought that, was like, fuck, we're getting ripped off, and mouthed off. Or
I still say, like, because of that logic, though, where was somebody to say, look, I don't care what happened. That was last year, and we'll get them to sign a letter of apology or whatever. But we can make some serious money off these guys. We got to lift this band. Where was that guy?
Maybe the band is
I think Ray refused. I think that was a possibility. I think Ray refused.
I was going to say, maybe the band is so arrogant that, like, we don't need we'll make our money out,
But I also think Ray was like, he was happy to stay at home, right? Mr. Bedsit, and with his, and that's how we got those albums, I
don't disagree with that, but I mean, the money was in the show at the time. The Beatles were still touring. There was a lot of money to be made.
He was pretty screwed out of his publishing too. His publishing was locked up.
There's a picture. I have to ask John, because I'll forget, but there's a picture I can think of from one of my early Beatle books when I was a kid, and it looked like, I'm trying to remember where they are, but it's in the United States, and there's a cop that's up on stage, and he's rousting George Harrison. And can you think of that old picture? And it's like in Cleveland or in Chicago, somewhere.
This is not like the 66 tour when after the.
No, they're the mop tops. So like George is wearing a suit, and they're still mop tops. And it's like, I'm trying to remember if he's not 21, because at that point, he's 17, and we all know he gets thrown out of, Britain or Hamburg on the same sort of like, oh, you go on and play down the street? Well, then I'm going to go and check out your visa. Yeah. Oh, you're only 17? I'm going to get you deported. And the same thing, but it was like, was it a nightclub? It wasn't a nightclub, because they would have been playing some sort of, I don't know if George needed to be 21, and he wasn't. Something was up where cops were up on stage with him, and I think they were going to cancel the show. And I think there was nearly a riot. And I think they only play 20 minutes anyway. Let them finish, kind of thing. And I swear that went on. I'll have to do a little research on that and find out what the story.
I want to go back to this Kinks thing, because I'd be interested to find out what happened when those 4 years were, or when they eventually get back into America. Do they capitulate, like you said, and say, okay, we got to give those guys.
It was a 4-year ban.
I know, but is that like, if this is all mobster kind of like corporate or mobster corruption kind of nonsense.
So now you're saying it's so corrupt, even after the 4-year ban, they had
is there a legitimate thing where they're like, we're issuing
this? It's a legitimate question.
We're issuing this thing on, this seal of this document that this band will not play here for 4 years. Or is it like, hey, no, we control the, we can.
No, so it's more organized than that. It's not like, they're playing some basement. It's just they weren't. Bands need to get work visas,
right?
And to get a work visa, they would need to be in good standing with the American Federation of Musicians, and they weren't.
Until those guys give me the okay over in the office, I can't issue this work visa. Right?
Exactly. Just like the same way when a musician today has to come into the state, that you need to get a work visa, and it's the complexity. But after, so they had a 4-year ban, and in that time from 1966 to 1970, their deal with Reprise in the United States, they ended up starting Conch Records, and they signed a new deal. And the label definitely went ahead and we're promoting this, and this is what we're doing. And I'm sure the label, on their behalf, said that they were going to come and they were going to promote this thing. And they came and they did the Fillmores, and that was their, they came back to a very different touring scenario than that would have been 4 years ago too.
But to Chris's point, could their management have been like, after 6 months or a year, been like,
yeah, I'm sure
goes over to that union office or whatever that thing is, and says, hey, look, I'm sorry about what happened. Here's 10 grand, whatever the amount is. Can you, we're gonna 10 grand to make this all right. Make this.
You appeal it, whatever. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. In that I'm pretty confident that Ray refused to apologize in any way.
Right. Yeah. That's my point. Is that the 4-year ban isn't like it isn't like a legislative thing that it's like, you got to serve your time. Oh, somebody could have went into the office.
But it's legislative in that, like, right? You like, they weren't in good standing, and they weren't going to be put into good standing. They were the ruling of the union was a 4-year ban.
I know, but I'm saying
because it sounds like we're brushing it over pretty late. It sounded like Dave punched the head of the union.
Or pissed
the union representative.
Right, he clearly pissed somebody off. I know, but again, being that this isn't a legislative degree. It's a organization. Somebody could have somebody could come up with a bag of cash and be like, "Hey, look, I'm sorry what happened here. Here's a little payola. Can you make it go away?" And all of a sudden, the 4 years is like, correct. We took another vote, and we issued. We're canceling your thing, and you're now good to go.
You learned your lesson.
Yes,
but you also you make it sound also like it is a legitimate union. It wasn't a matter of let me show up with a bag of money, because that also could have actually turned it into a 7-year ban too if they did it sloppy.
Or whatever. I know. Yeah. I'm not trying to offend anybody here that's in with the union, but we all know this is again. This isn't a country. The union. I
guess the answer is yes, but because of the way history played itself, I think they
served their full 4 years.
No. But see, that's the thing is, I do believe they played in the United States in '69, which would have been only 3 years. That's why I was surprised when it's 4. So they might have got maybe honestly, ironically, Reprise record might have gotten them a reprieve.
Yeah, like somebody higher up in the. Again, this is all theoretical. Somebody higher up in the label.
I know you keep insisting.
Well,
yes, theoretically, yes.
I know, but
also theoretically, some guy could 2 minutes later could have said or someone they could have had a real U.S. road manager who said hey, why is he talking to the musician to sign this? That's the weirdest thing to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like what? Right.
Yeah,
that's why.
Go and get management to take care of this. Hey, fellas, you got some things to sign over here. Sign, whatever. I'll take care of it. Just sign these things, fellas. We got to do the show.
Talking to the Limey, yeah,
right. Or right, you have a lawyer on your team that is just like, this is nonsense. We're gonna counter, My point being that is like, this is not like a country where it's the Ministry of musician unions. It's a private entity.
How that works, though, Tony. I know, like in construction, you can get disbarred, and I think that.
You need licenses. You can't.
Well, if you get popped for something, there's
a law that a band's manager cannot book a show.
Wow.
There's a union where.
But Sid Bernstein directly contacted Brian Epstein, Charles Finley. like directly contacted Brian Epstein, if I'm not mistaken.
There is.